What's up, and welcome to Surging Ahead. This is Brett, and today we're going to talk about a recent article that appeared in Vice where they talk about the large batteries being placed in electric vehicles such as Rivian and the Ford F-150 Lightning and the Hummer EV, and why this is specifically a bad idea and how they should concentrate on smaller batteries in smaller vehicles. So stick around and we'll dig right in. All right, so here is our article. It's titled, There Aren't Enough Batteries in the World to Power Our Huge Cars. And Someone Help Me Budget This, My Environment is Dying by Aaron Gordon. And so they talk about Rivian providing factory tours and his quote that said, put very simply, all the world's cell production combined represents well under 10% of what we will need in 10 years. Meaning 90% to 95% of the supply chain does not exist. And so the author goes on to say, Scringe is hardly the first to raise this particular alarm bell. Here are some other articles and recent concerns about supply for key ingredients for batteries. And him saying, batteries take a lot of stuff and it's going to be a problem. So then he goes on to talk about a possible reaction to a car company get out of this problem is to carefully engineer their products to try and use the smallest possible batteries while still delivering a desirable product. And then goes on to say, but that is not what's happening with electric vehicle batteries. In fact, no company is being more wasteful with battery resources than Rivian itself, which manufactures vehicles with some of the largest batteries on the market. And so here is where I get into my complaints about this article. We'll start off with this claim that no one is being more irresponsible than Rivian. So here's a little spreadsheet I made about battery sizes and for the various trucks out here and what we know. Some of these I feel are a little bit speculative, such as this one for the Rivian at 180. I don't believe that Rivian has ever officially said that their battery pack for the max pack will be 180, but Car and Driver has it listed, and so does this Vice article, so I could have just missed that. I think this possibly will be larger. I also think there's a possibility it'll never make it. But if we go here and we look at the EV trucks that we actually know about, the 135 kilowatt hour battery for a 300-mile vehicle is smaller than the Hummers and about the same size as the F-150s. We don't know what the Cybertrucks will be, and we don't know what a Silverado would be. And then if we take it on face value that the 400 mile for the Rivian is 180 kilowatt hours, well, that ends up being more efficient than the Silverados, which is supposed to be 200 kilowatt hour. And I would not be surprised if this is actually the 212.7 of the Hummer EVs, but I guess we don't know that for sure. Once again, we don't know anything about the Cybertruck. Until they actually publish some numbers and get some EPA tests, that's all pure speculation. But, if you look here, clearly they're not the least responsible car company for battery sizes, because there are clear examples of vehicles being produced right now which are a bigger problem than Rivian's. So, I don't know. I take special umbrage with that statement, I guess, and I think this article could do better about that. However, they are correct. These are big batteries. So let's look at what the efficiency looks like on these. Right, so here's a spreadsheet I put together with the efficiency numbers of the EV trucks we actually have some information on. As we get more information about the Cybertruck and about the Silverado, can add those in. But just for a quick run through on efficiency, the Rivian's is at a 70. The Hummer EV is at a 47. And the Lightning is anywhere between 66 and 70. And interestingly, in this article they talk about the smaller battery cars and doing better on efficiency. Well, the worst efficiency out of the Lightning is the one with the smallest battery pack. So, when you're moving around this much mass to carry around this big of a vehicle, you're going to give up some of that efficiency by putting a smaller battery pack in. At least that's what we're seeing from the Lightning. And so these numbers in context are kind of hard to bring in. But let's go ahead and look at what Tesla did with their first mass production vehicles and kind of the improvements there. So when Tesla launched the Model S, its efficiency, overall combined miles per gallon rating was at 89. And over the years, they've increased that to 120. And then you look at the Model X. That started at 92, and they have increased the efficiency there, but that's only an extra 10 mpge. And it's really not that far off of where Rivian is for their R1T. So, I mean, this is going to be an inherent problem with larger vehicles, and you're going to get less efficiency out of them. And it seems clear, at least right now, that at least a semi-traditionally designed pickup truck is going to get less efficiency than what you get from a large sedan, or, well, the Model X is labeled an SUV, but honestly, it's closer to a minivan. So, you know, whatever. Your efficiency is going to have a drop there. But there's room for improvement from all of these brands as they start to decline. Now, where it gets interesting and where I think it actually starts to be more fun here is when you bring in ICE vehicles. So let's look at trucks. Here we have our numbers we had before, but then you look at competitive vehicles. The Dodge Ram TRX. People are going to be cross-shopping that with the Rivian R1T. They're big, fast, off-road trucks. 70 to 12. That's, what, 6x more efficient for the Rivian R1T? The F-150 Raptor. 16 to 70. Significantly faster. Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. This may be a more direct comparison because it's more similar in the size area. But you're going from 18 to 70. And here we get into, these are not really competitive trucks at all, right? But here is your super efficient trucks. 26 to 70. 37 to 70. You're looking at, even for the hybrid model, almost, you know, double the efficiency going to that. And that's a pretty big win for a much larger, more capable pickup truck. So continuing on with our article, the person goes on to talk about how a 35 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is again the smaller of the two options, which I do take umbrage with. I know he mentions the next 2 years, but Rivian does have a third option coming out for a smaller battery pack that will get you the 200 plus mile range. We don't really have any details. It probably won't come out until 2024, so fair enough for leaving it off. But the Max Pack, who knows when that's actually going to ship either. They don't have any firm dates on that, so that may be more than 2 years out itself. Anyway, continuing on here, according to website EV Database, the average electric vehicle on the market in Europe, where the EV market is more mature and competitive, has a battery pack of 60.4 kilowatt hours, less than half the size. Rivian battery is almost double the size of a Tesla Model Y's 75 kilowatt hour battery, despite providing essentially the same range. He goes on to talk about how all of these other things get better range with being smaller. He goes on to talk about how we keep making mistakes by producing large vehicles in America, and it's problematic, and it really ruins efficiency. Not everybody can drive a small car, right? And maybe you can for driving around town or whatever, but there are people who work jobs that need to carry lumber around, or people who live in areas that are difficult to access with a small car. Even if we take away the car versus pickup truck argument, if you have small kids and are a tall person, and you put a rear-facing child seat in the back of a small car, it becomes incredibly uncomfortable to try to drive that vehicle with the seat pushed clear up. There are a lot of reasons people might want a bigger car, and so require a bigger battery pack. But you say, fine, a Model Y is bigger. You can get up to 7-person seating in there for a 3-row SUV. But that still doesn't accomplish all your needs. Different people have different needs in vehicles, and in order to accommodate them, you have to provide different kinds of vehicles. Now, why a pickup truck? For Ford and GM, I think the answer to that is it's a major part of their business. For Rivian, they're a small automaker. If they were to try to scale in the size and to create a vehicle like the Model Y where they're moving 1 million of them right off the bat, how does that actually work for them? They don't have service centers. They don't have their own charging network. They have one factory. Are you going to take your first design and have it be a lower margin vehicle, not having done the design yourself, not knowing what efficiencies there are and costs, and try to produce 1 million of them? RJ is already having a ton of problems getting parts for their vehicles because manufacturers don't necessarily trust that they're going to be able to produce the volume there are, and they're only trying to produce 100,000 vehicles a year. And only half of those are supposed to be the R1 platform, which is for consumers like you and I, the people that are watching this video, who are trying to buy a truck or an SUV. Half of the vehicles are supposed to be delivery vans for Amazon, right? And so that is another market where huge efficiency gains are out there. So if you're trying to design something as a startup, you don't want to make a low margin, high volume product to start off with because you have to scale to that. And the only successful manufacturer of cars to be born in the last 100 years or so is Tesla. And Tesla created a blueprint that other manufacturers are following. If you want to try to start a company here to make new vehicles, you create a car that is high margin, low volume. You use the learnings from that and the profits and ability to build out your infrastructure, such as your service centers and your charging locations, to have enough in place for when you're ready to take that next step to build a more higher volume car to reach more people. And I get his argument that there's only so many batteries in the world, but if everybody tried making smaller cars that are high volume vehicles in order to make the margins they need off of them, then there's not enough batteries for that either. So Tesla is already talking about how they can't make the Cybertruck yet, and they can't make a higher volume car that goes to even lower income brackets with smaller batteries because they just can't produce enough batteries to make it into all those cars. And you have to have enough of the supply chain and battery infrastructure to build that many vehicles at scale for lower margins to make sense for a manufacturer. And especially when you're like Rivian, and the only thing you have is this brand new product, it just doesn't make sense. For a Ford or a GM, maybe it does, right? And GM launched the Bolt first. Ford launched the Mustang Mach-E. They did these smaller or these higher volume, lower cost cars because they can afford to be a loss leader. They don't have to make money off those vehicles to start with because they have this entire other business that's propping them up and allowing them to do these things. Rivian doesn't have that luxury. They have to be sustainable far quicker. And the only way they can do that, in my mind, is by creating higher margin, low volume vehicles. And so that's where we're at. So that's where I'm at, specifically looking at Rivian. But if you look to his argument here on improving the environment, when you start comparing what you can get for vehicles, a Prius will do 50, 60 miles per gallon for a relatively low cost with a small battery, right? That's pretty close to what you get out of a Model Y. There's nothing like that in the pickup space. Absolutely nothing. So if you want the most volume for efficiency, maybe it's not an EV at all, right? Maybe those cars shouldn't be built and they should all be going into small hybrids to do everything else. But I don't think that's the case. You need to develop your powertrains. You need to do whatever to get to full EVs, and the only way you can do that is by putting the technology in place that you have now. And that's where we get our trucks. Where a lot of these trucks were 5 to 6x less efficient than the EV trucks. So producing these giant batteries and putting them in a truck to offset that market has a way bigger impact on the environment than a car which is twice as efficient as another version of that car. And if you look at the efficiency charts, almost nothing touches the Model 3 or Y. They're super efficient vehicles. Their miles per gallon are off the charts. The other EV manufacturers aren't there yet. And Rivian's using a lot of off-the-shelf parts. So they're going to have lower efficiency gains because they're not been doing it for as long as Tesla. They have a significant advantage. And the Model 3 and Model Y are great cars. If you don't need a pickup truck, buy one. They're a great vehicle. If you need a pickup truck, I think it's great that there are now options for it. And even the Hummer EV, which is terribly inefficient, is still more efficient than a Ford Maverick. And in what world should you really be comparing those two? So anyway, I get where this guy's coming from. We're going to have to get to a point where every vehicle is offset with EVs eventually. But we're a long way from there. And there's a lot of work that has to happen on the supply chain. And low margin vehicles with small battery packs, you can't start a car. I just don't think you can start a car company with those. And so that's where we're at. That's why Rivian did what they did. You know, they originally were going to do a sports car, looked at the market and said, there's a lot of options for this. It's going to be really difficult for us to scale here. So they pivoted and went with options that there aren't a lot of, or weren't at the time. Competition's coming. Rivian might fail. You know, maybe it'll be proven that their strategy was wrong. But it worked for Tesla. It's got a shot at working for Rivian. And by all accounts, it's a great truck. So, anyway, let me know what you think. Am I off base here? Is it silly for these companies to be making pickup trucks? Should they be concentrating on vehicles that have small batteries? Let me know what you think in the comments. Anyway, this has been Brett with Surging Ahead. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want to see more videos by me, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.